Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We're moving on now to another topic, and we've got Mr. Laolu Osanyan, who is a medical lawyer and also a member of the Board of Governors of the World Association for Medical Law. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thanks for having me here.
Now we have this case. Yes, it may bother on maternal mortality, but the question that they want to determine, perhaps, which is what the MDCN will also look into, which the family of the woman involved here, they seem to be alluding or alleging medical negligence. Yeah. So that would be with a big question mark, yeah. Medical negligence. Yeah. Having seen the account of the family and the health personnel who says, look, MDCN is looking into this, what do you think of this scenario?
Well, the spokesperson for the Federal Medical Center, SAPA, is quite right. You see, at times, an untrained eye might make unguarded and unreasonable allegations. At times, they might be reasonable and contrite. But because they are untrained, they should let those who are saddled with responsibilities and trained in such actions to do the right thing and investigate. In Nigeria today, there's a huge boom in malpractice allegations against healthcare providers. I call it a whirlwind of litigations and petitions against hospitals and doctors and healthcare workers. Reasonableness of most of them are in doubt, but what we have learned over time is that the only loser is usually the doctor or the hospital, by virtue of an allegation that has not been substantiated already in the media, and bad news sells.
But
you know, so
legally,
yes,
and medically speaking,
yes.
What term do we
give
call
it medico-legally speaking then?
No. I mean that particular case now.
Yes.
Where the husband was narrating what happened.
Yes.
So what legal term?
I'm familiar with that case.
Do we?
He's alleged that his wife was induced.
Oh.
And that he didn't consent to that.
To the inducement?
To the inducement of his wife in labor, to labor. Might be right. Well, we need to get the facts right. A woman does not need the consent of her husband for certain things, particularly when it comes to her body. So a woman can consent to give me cesarean section, induce me, as long as the doctor has gotten sought consent from the woman. The husband really doesn't have much local standard, except the woman is unconscious. But if the woman is an adult with mental faculties intact, she has a right of autonomy over herself. So a woman can say, please remove this baby from me naturally. The husband might still be praying that he wants his wife to give birth like the Hebrew woman, proverbially. But the woman say, remove it, and I consent. So what we should find out, and what will happen eventually here, is that they will need to find out, was consent given? Now, most importantly, Nigerians are disillusioned or misguided. Most Nigerians and my practitioners are misguided, thinking that consent is only when the patient signs the form, the proverbial consent form.
So there could be verbal consent?
Verbal consent. And the most important of it is informed consent. That is, communicating to the patient, telling the patients the alternatives to this procedure, risk involved, benefits of this procedure, and things like that. Moreover, now, for inducement or induction, rather, you do not need written consent, because it's just like, have you ever seen anybody sign a consent form to be given a drip or transfusion? No.
But this case happened after she gave birth to the 3 children.
Yes.
We're talking about 6 months ago now.
Yes.
And after the delivery,
yes,
the husband said that she needed blood.
Yes.
And he has asked the hospital to provide the blood for her.
Yes.
And it took them over 24 hours
yes.
before agreeing to provide that blood.
Yes.
And within that space of 24 hours,
yes.
the wife passes on. What happens in this case?
I'm not acting the devil's advocate, but the reality on ground in Nigeria of today is that where is the blood going to come from? Most hospitals that I interface with have a problem with blood. People come to voluntarily donate blood. Now, we always try to encourage patients who have relatives who have patients on admission to be kind enough to donate their blood as well, because their relative is taking blood donated by somebody whom he or she doesn't know. Now, that is not to say or to condone the fact that 24 hours is rather unreasonable for you to get blood. But there are instances whereby you just might, depend on the person's blood type, you just might have to go out of town and you have to cross match and things like that. So I think the best thing really is to let those saddled with responsibility of investigating investigate. I'm in the health, I'm a stakeholder in the health sector, and I do realize the fact that a lot of times allegations come in. Unfortunately, the doctor and the hospitals they're on the receiving end most of the time because of social media and the virality of bad news in Nigeria. And by the time after investigation and the doctor exonerated, virtually no light on it.
Let me follow up on something, and
yes.
We'll come back to this one.
Yes.
Hoping we don't lose our train of thought on
no.
it. It has to do with what's that word again? Consent.
Yes.
When you said the verbal consent, nobody signs documents, that the
yes.
doctor can always communicate.
Yes.
When that communication is going on between the doctor and the patient,
yes.
in this case, isn't it procedure or standard procedure that the family or someone will always be
All
there?
you need is a chaperone. It could be a witness, a nurse, a chaperone, another doctor, a family member, a relative. But as long as... Now, I need to clarify. For verbal consent, they are usually for non-invasive procedures.
Yeah, but if it's invasive.
Like biopsies, like you want to check somebody's testicles and things like that. Just tell them, I have to do this. And somebody's there hearing you. In fact, there's a protocol that says that no male doctor should touch a female patient without there being a chaperone, because of any kind of allegation that could stand eventually against the person. So now that's for non-invasive. But for invasive ones, whereby you need to go in, yes, in that situation, you need to sign a consent form. But I also said that aside from signing a consent form, you need what is called informed consent, where you tell the patient the benefits, the alternatives, life-altering circumstances that will arrive from that, disadvantages. Particularly, the Code of Medical Ethics actually also provides when you are going to lose an organ or limb, or when it's going to result in deformity, or when you are going to donate an organ, and you have enough time, the law allows you 3 weeks to think about it. So I'm going to donate my organ to you now. The law allows me 3 weeks to, after we haven't been tutored and got spoken to about it in a language I understand. So you come, tell me the benefits, tell me the likely circumstances, tell me the disadvantages and all that in a language I understand, so that I can reach an informed decision. Now, where most malpractices happen in Nigeria is with informed consent. As we speak now, people are being wheeled into theaters, and their families don't have an inkling into the type of surgery their family member are going into.
What do you think can be done, for instance, because we get a lot of reports
yes.
about the act of
yes.
the nurses
yes.
when it comes to situations where you have to go in,
yes.
as you did say you're having
a lot of the
cesarean.
problem.
But the nurses themselves, is this painting all of them with the same brush, or would you say that to a large extent, the nurses, after so many campaigns of improving on yourself, improve on relationship with your patients,
yes.
do you think that message is sinking in?
It might not be fair to single out a sector in the health, profession in the health sector, particularly the nurses, or all the doctors. They're usually the ones that get the flag most of the time. We organized the Nigerian Medical Law Summit last year, where the theme of it was creating a medical legal environment in Nigerian hospitals. The thinking is this: the average healthcare worker that touches you or me every day has no basic training or exposure in medical laws. They have none. They don't teach them in most of them in medical schools or teaching hospitals, either for lab technicians, lab scientists, nurses, pharmacists, whatever. They do not. So most of the time, the first interface they have with medical legal issues is with malpractice. Part of the things they're canvassing for now is for the teaching hospitals to be teaching medical laws while we are still training them as doctors, as pharmacists, as nurses. But that is only going to solve half of the problem. We already have an army of people who are already qualified and already touching patients as we speak. What do? It's important for capacity to be developed in that area. And I always tell them, if you train your staff, you save more money, you have less bad news, you can focus on your practice, and your reputation is good. For example, have you heard that Johns Hopkins is in court before for malpractice? Have you heard of that big hospitals abroad are in court? No, because why? They've created a medical legal environment. But in Nigeria here, I call them, they're like soldiers who are blindfolded and dropped inside Syria where there are landmines. They themselves do not understand the laws regulating their practice. The tragedy, however, is that the patients now understand their rights. So now we get more instances. There is a 200% increase within the last 5 to 7 years. 200% increase in malpractice cases in Nigeria because the patients are more aware. But the healthcare providers aren't. So it is imperative, if you run a hospital, for you to invest in training of your staff. Because in medical laws, we say malpractice can start from the ambulance driver and end at the doorstep of the chief medical director.